Good evening. Welcome to the Southside High School 4-3-3 tutorial. There are many different ways to do the 4-3-3. You can have a triangle with a defensive midfielder and two central midfielders, or an inverted triangle with two defensive midfielders. Basically your players determine which way we're going to do this, and I think we have a well-rounded group this year. So let's talk about these types of players later. Let's talk about the build-up of the 4-3-3. Most of the content we're going to discuss will be against a 4-4-2 formation, which is the most common in high school. In the future, we'll hopefully build some other things. Let's say we're trying to build our team as a defensive unit, which is the blue team in this case, in a 4-4-2. Your primary job is to always stop the forward passing options and force the opponents into making a mistake. And as the attacking unit, which is the red team in a 4-3-3 formation, your primary job is to create passing lanes to move the ball. So how are we going to do this? Let's say our left back has the ball. In order to stop the left back from playing a forward pass, 07 will move up to press the left back. When 07 moves up to press the left back, 09 now has two options. He can either drop back to cover the forward passing option to the midfielder, or he can move up to press the center back to cut the back pass to the center back. If 09 decides to move up to press the center back, the left back can easily play the ball to the midfielder, and you can build your play with one-touch passing. In this case, the left midfielder has his back towards the goal, and he's also being pressed by the 06, so he doesn't have enough time and space, and this is why he should be able to play one-touch passes to move the ball for his team. And similarly, the defensive midfielder or the playmaker should also have the ability to play quick one-touch passes to release the ball when under pressure. If the 9 decides to drop back to cover the forward passing option, then our left back has only one passing option available to him. He can play the ball to the left center back. Now, just like the 9 and the 10, again, the 10 has a decision to make. He can either cover the defensive midfielder, or he can move up to press. If 10 decides to cover the center back, the left center back can easily play the ball to the defensive midfielder. And if the 10 decides to cover the defensive midfielder, then the center back can play the ball to the other center back, who can now play the ball to the midfielder. And we can again build the play with quick one-touch passing. Let's try to discuss the third scenario. If 10 moves to cover the defensive midfielder and 11 immediately moves in to cut the passing lane from the center back to the midfielder, the center back can play the ball to the fullback. When this happens, the winger can drop to receive the ball from his fullback. And as the winger drops back, he can force the opposition fullback out of his position to create the space in the defense. This open space can either be exploited by the striker or by the midfielder. This is why you need players who are mentally and physically active. You also need players who have good technical abilities to play quick one-touch passes to avoid the pressure and move the ball forward to your team. Pressure is one of the key things we're going to be doing this year at Southside. In the modern day football, having a good playing goalkeeper is also very important if you want to build a play from the back. There are times when the opponents press you high up the ground as a team, forcing you into situations when the short passing options are not available. And this is where a ball-playing goalkeeper comes into play. Now in this case, the 10 is pressing the goalkeeper from the left side, and he's cutting the passing lane to the right center back. 9 is covering the defensive midfielder with the 11 and 7, the two positional diagonals between the center back and the fullback. If the goalkeeper decides to play the ball to the left center back, the 7 will move up to press the center back, and then the center back will have no short passing options available to him. The 10 will cover the goalkeeper, the 9 on the defensive midfielders, and the 6 on the left midfielders. The center back is now in trouble, and this is where the goalkeeper's ball-playing skills come into play. Since the 7 is the positional diagonal, he's not covering a long passing option. If the goalkeeper can pick his winger or the fullback through a long full pass, that's fine. You'll have an immediate advantage against the opposition fullback. And this is why even when you're trying to build a play from the back, you don't always have to play short passes. Your goalkeeper and your center back should have the vision and the ability to read the situation and play the right pass at the right time. When playing a 4-4-2 formation, we'll always have a man advantage in the midfield. So one of your midfielders, mostly the deep-lying playmaker, will always have the chance to receive the ball from his defense in order to counter this man advantage. There's a possibility that one of the wide players can drop in the midfield to cover one of our midfielders. In this way, they can neutralize the numbers advantage in the midfield. When this happens, you still have a few options to build your play. Since the right back is still covered or marked by 11, so one of the options is that your center back can now easily pick up the left back, but most likely 9s move in behind the center back and the fullback to cut the passing lane. Now in this situation, the left back can actually drop in the defense to make a back three, and the defensive midfielder can move up, taking the respective opposition player with him. The back three will split the front, and the higher position the defensive midfielder will create a hole in the middle of the ground. And this is where you need a center back who's confident with the ball at his feet, like a Reed, who can easily step out into space to pick his front players. Leipzig did this very effectively in the Champions League a couple of seasons ago. When Ethan Ampadu often stepped into the midfield with the ball, he dictated the tempo of the game. And one other option is that right winger can drop deep, forcing the fullback out of his position. And then the right back plays a long pass behind the fullback for the run of the right central midfielder. Another option is that the right winger can drop deep, forcing the fullback out. The midfielder can then occupy the space which is left open by the fullback, and the striker can drop deep in the midfield to receive the ball directly from his fullback. The flexibility of these three central midfielders is very important in creating space and in maintaining a secure shape. Most of these build-up patterns are practiced in the training ground. However, not everything can be taught in practice. This is why the intelligence and technical abilities of each one of you are very important. You have to work with those on your own. These are some of the build-up exercises we learned in camp this summer that we can perform in the training. But let's talk about pressing in a 4-3-3 formation. First of all, when you start the high press, your striker is actually going to decide the direction of the opponent's play. So first of all, if the striker decides to press the goalkeeper from the left side, the opponents will start their build-up towards the right side. If the striker decides to press the goalkeeper from the right side, the opponents will build up from the left. If the striker decides to press the goalkeeper any direction, it's going to be determined where they go. Once he's decided which side to press, the entire team has to adjust accordingly. So the striker will initiate the high press by pressing the goalkeeper. The midfielders will press the two center backs. The wingers can either press the fullback or they can move in to cover the midfielder who has come across. The defensive midfielder normally covers whoever presses from the midfield. The 9 starts the high press, and he's forcing the goalkeeper to build their play towards the right side, and the entire team adjusts accordingly. The goalkeeper plays the ball to the center back, and the left central midfielder immediately moves up to press the center back. The right central midfielder, the defensive midfielder, and the right winger adjust their positions accordingly to provide cover to the advanced midfielder. The left-sided passing options are now blocked, and the center back is now forced to play the ball to his fullback. The ball goes to the fullback, and the left winger immediately moves up to press the fullback, with the defensive midfielder providing cover to his winger. The right central midfielder can cover the nearest midfield option, and now all the nearby passing lanes of the man in possession are well blocked, and this is your main objectives when you press the opponents. You want to limit their passing options and force them into making a mistake. And similarly, if the striker moves to press from the right side, the team will again adjust their position accordingly. So this was all from today's video. In the next video, we'll hopefully discuss the offensive and defensive plays